I believe that everybody has a story, and I'm fascinated to hear them. So come with me as we take a walk down Fascination Street. Welcome back, Streetwalkers. This episode is part 2 of my conversation with Walt Flanagan from the Comic Book Man TV show and the Tell 'em Steve Dave podcast. In this episode, we talk about the Comic Book Man TV show lasting for 7 seasons, and how surprised we both were when it was canceled, considering some rather interesting events that happened around that same time. We also talk about when he knew he could draw comics, and his recent comic book collaboration with Brian Quinn and Cullen Bunn. Plus, Walt shares his September 11th story and whether he thinks COVID will kill the secret stash. Also, who he would call to help him dispose of a dead body. So enjoy, folks. This was recorded during all the self-distancing due to the coronavirus outbreak. So if that is over by now, woohoo. If not, damn it. But either way, this is the conclusion of my conversation with Walt Flanagan. Yeah, talk to me, yeah. So, I asked you earlier what was the nuttiest thing or the craziest thing you have done as a Tell 'em Steve Dave adventure. What is the wildest, most unbelievable thing that you did as part of the Comic Book Man TV show?
I think lasting 7 seasons has got to be the thing that's the wildest, craziest, because it was something that really shouldn't have been, I don't think. Like a TV show shouldn't be made to air at like 2 o'clock in the morning on the East Coast in first run. You know, it's just such a weird thing that, like, as the seasons wore on, the show would get pushed back later and later because they wanted to show another run. They wanted to run the Walking Dead episode again. They wanted to run the Talking Dead follow-up. And, you know, they wanted to run that again before they showed Comic Book Men. I mean, there was a point where it was like 1:15 in the morning, the Comic Book Men episode of the week, the first run episode was airing on the East Coast. And I was convinced, like, well, why are they going to bring us back if they're running the episode at 1 o'clock in the morning? And then they don't run it again. Like during the rest of the week, you got to search for it. Like on a Tuesday night, they'll run it again at 1 a.m.
Right.
So I was always like, there's no way they're going to re-up this. There's no way they're going to re-up this. And for 7 seasons, they did. And I think that's the craziest thing, because I just always assumed that they were going to pull the plug, except the one they did. I was like, there's no way they're going to pull the plug. Kev just had a heart attack. There's no way that's some cold shit if they fucking pull the plug now. And and I was stunned when they did. I couldn't believe it. On the heels of him at death's door, they canceled the show. Every season between that, though, literally, well, before we got the green light that they approved another season, I was like, we're not coming back. We're not coming back. Except that one, I was like, we're definitely coming back. We're definitely coming back. So it goes to show you that, you never know.
And not only was it on the heels of his heart attack, but I think you guys were only like 4 episodes away from that magic number 100.
Yeah, I know.
That's just amazing.
Yeah, it was a stunner. It definitely was, but there was no feelings of like, there was a bit of, I want to say shock. I don't even know if shock's the right word. Just a bit of like a stunner. I was like, holy fuck, I can't believe that. Only because I thought for sure they would greenlight one more, but not cancel him like after he just recovered from a heart attack, because I thought there was so much more that we could have done, especially coming off the heels of that, with messages about, healthcare and everything. Just there was more stories that he had to tell on the set of Comic Book Men that we could have done, but it was not meant to be.
They sort of missed out, because in that 8th season, or what would have been the 8th season, Kevin lost like 100 pounds in 4 months or something crazy like that. I mean, they could have made that part of the narrative or whatever, like you said, some healthy stuff and whatnot. Yeah, I was blown away by that. Also, the moment that I knew that Kevin was going to be okay, I was like, cool, he's going to be all right. But then also, for sure, we're going to get another season, at least one more.
Yeah, I thought so. I think everybody thought so. It was definitely one of those like unexpected moments. But how could you feel bitter, or how could you feel like anything but, oh, well, you know what? I say it now looking back, but it was fun while it lasted. But that only comes with, being able to have a bit of space in between there, because I'm not a person that is comfortable performing, and it was performing Comic Book Man. It really wasn't a reality show. You had to have reactions. That camera, the guys wanted reactions to the things that were brought in. Reactions that I wouldn't have given in real life. Nobody would have. Not just me, but everybody there. You had to have some level of acting in it. But all the while, there were real, legitimate moments as well, though, too. It was like half and half. Nobody told us what to say. Nobody told us what to do. But there were expectations of like, okay, Lindsay Wagner, the Bionic Woman's coming in. You can't just be like, oh, hey, Lindsay, or you have to give her a response that, the audience is going to realize this is meaningful to you. Or the fact that you have to pretend that you didn't know she was coming. All the while you knew she was coming. I know there's a few people online who are like, this is all bullshit. This is so fake. I was like, yes, it is. And no, it's not. There's no script. There's nobody telling you how to react or what joke to crack when Adam West is sitting there in the Batmobile with you. You're really ad-libbing everything on the spot, everything. So there is some level of, I don't know what to say the word talent. I hate to use that word, but it has to be some interaction. You have to at least try to make it feel like it's legitimate. And not that it wasn't legitimate, but like you have to have that, put your hand over your face when you see Action Comics #1. Like, oh my God, as if I'd never seen it before. Like nothing you see, I'm sure, on reality TV is legitimate unless it's like a hunting show or something.
I feel like a legitimate, like true to the meaning of the words reality TV. I think if a reality TV show is 30 minutes, then there shouldn't be any cuts. Like it should be real time, 30 minutes long. Whatever happens, happens. So I think all reality TV has some producing going on.
Right, exactly. But like it took a long time. It wasn't until that final season where like I did not have any more hang-ups about acting like an idiot in front of the camera people. I always felt like self-conscious. Like I always felt like, I'm acting like a fool. Like I have to like gawk and I have to dress up in a costume in front of them. And then, you grew with the same camera guys. You grew to, like them, and you grew to interact with them. So like you would lose that level of, what's that called? That awkwardness of like where I had to like, where other people are watching me do this. And it took a long time to lose that, where I didn't feel that self-consciousness constantly. And as soon as I lost it, it was over.
That's nuts. Well, I'm glad that we got 7 seasons out of it. It was a lot of fun. I relished running to my DVR whenever it was finally on there, because I sure as fuck wasn't going to stay, because I'm an hour later than you, or whatever. I wasn't going to stay up that late.
No, nobody was.
Yeah, people got jobs, and that's what the DVR was for. But I really enjoyed those 7 seasons, so thank you for that.
Thank you for saying that. It was fun, like I said, and there was a lot of moments that, like, who would have ever dreamed that I would drive a Batmobile with Adam West, or that I would meet Elvira, or any other number of, like, amazing guests. George Perez, just a guy that I adored growing up, his art and everything. I got a chance to tell him that in person. Freddy Krueger, just the list goes on. And it's only when you can take a step back and look back on it. In the moment, you don't really, because your mind is going a million miles per hour, because you're like, well, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? Like, you can't just freeze up and not interact with them. So you have to put that aside and not let that get in your head that you're interacting with the dude from Ghostbusters and the ice cream truck. You have to make sure you don't, I don't want to say the word freeze up, but you don't, like, let it get to you where you're not having a natural conversation, Yeah,
that part has to be hard.
Because you're constantly cognizant of it. At least I was. I think Bri was much easier at it, and nothing really faced him. I think Ming was super easy about it. Never bothered him. I think Mike as well. I think I had the hardest time not overthinking and being a little bit leery and self-conscious about it all.
Interesting. Now, it was not this last Christmas, but I think maybe the Christmas before. I came into the stash probably a few weeks before Christmas, and I bought a book that you illustrated, and you were kind enough to open it up, and on the inside of the cover, you drew right there on the spot, you drew a drawing for my son, because that's who the book was for. So thank you very much for that. That was super cool. And you didn't have to do that, but you did because you're super rad.
Oh, thank you.
When did you realize that you were a good enough artist to illustrate comic books? Because you've done quite a few.
I don't know if I ever considered myself good enough. I mean, I'm a very harsh critic. I hate some of the stuff that I've drawn that's seen print. But I always like to draw, and I always like, especially to draw comic books. You know, I don't want to draw anything else. I mean, if I'm going to draw it, I want to draw it in comic book form, you know, story panels, stuff like that. Motivated because I love comic books solely, but I wish that I had honed my skills in my 20s and 30s rather than picking it up in my 40s again. You know, I always like to draw, but for a long time I didn't draw because all that self-doubt, all that like, oh, I'm not good enough, I'll never be good enough. And I stopped drawing for decades, and I regret that today because, you know, I stunted my growth as an artist by doing that. You know, it is what it is, but, you know, now I feel like I'm getting better and better, as everybody does with more practice, but I certainly don't consider myself good enough, you know, just good enough to get the gig with Kevin on the Batman books. That's always how I'll always look at it, just good enough. But good enough is still okay, though, because it was still a dream come true to be able to draw some of the characters in the DC universe.
Do you have a favorite book that you've drawn?
Oh boy, that's a tough one.
Or if you like, you could answer whether you have a favorite child.
Yeah. I mean, they're all special to me. They're all snapshots. So when I look at the artwork in the books, it takes me right back to where I was and what year it was when I was drawing it. I look at a page and I can remember exactly what was going on in my life when that page was drawn. I don't know if other artists do that, but I do that. And I'll, like, if I re-look at my work for some reason, I don't do it that often, and I could take me right back to what I was doing and what was going on around me when that page was drawn. So they're all unique and special that way. You know, the one I just did with Q with Metro.
I'm holding it right now.
I think that's some of my strongest work, because that one challenged me unlike any other project I've ever done, because there's a lot of conversation. It's a very conversation-driven story. The two main characters convey what is going on through conversation, and that challenged me to look at different camera angles to create the visuals of two guys talking. It was so rewarding, though, because I'm looking at the scripts. I'm like, well, I just don't want to draw, you know, head-on faces constantly. You know, like where you just draw a face head-on and you just have a word balloon above it.
Right.
That book challenged me, and I was very happy with how it came out and how I was able to kind of change and move the camera around so we're not just seeing the same angles over and over again of the two main characters speaking to each other. So that one was a challenge, and I really enjoy how that one came out. And I hope that Q and Cullen get together and do the sequel to that, because I know there's a lot of crazy stuff that they have planned visually for the next storyline in that series.
Kick ass. Oh, and Cryptozoic, man, I have that series framed up on the wall in my spare bedroom. My brother is a cabinet maker, and he made some special frames. I think I sent you one a long time ago, where it's made to where you don't need a board. You know, you just put it in the bag and slide it in the frame. And
okay.
All four of them are hanging on the wall, signed by all you guys. I fucking love those books. They're beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, like visually, yeah, like those books, or like Metro was very like defined in what I had to draw. Cryptozoic Man was just the opposite, where I was just like, well, I can just draw whatever the fuck I want, whatever captures my fancy. What's something weird that I can draw here? What's something bizarre that I can draw here? What's something that will be in the tone of a horror / sci-fi series? I could do whatever I wanted on that one. So that one is just one that I'll look at and be like, that was fun, just for the aspect of being like, the only thing I was limited by was my imagination in terms of what I wanted to draw.
Well, you did a great job, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate you doing that. And seriously, I can't get over how nice you've been every time I've met you. Like, you've just been the nicest fucking guy.
Well, I try to be, especially, I don't want to say especially, I try to be nice to every customer that comes into the store. So that's priority one. But I'm not going to lie. I mean, when they mention that they listen to Tom, Steve, Dave, I don't know, it just makes it a hell of a lot. Not that it's, not I don't want to say the word easier, but it just automatically just ramps up the warm factor when I'm like, oh, okay. It just gives a little bit more meaning. It just makes it a little bit more real in that, okay, you're part of that little exclusive club that listens, and I appreciate you listening, and I appreciate anybody who comes in and says something nice about the podcast. So it's very, very easy to let them know that, we do appreciate them telling me something nice about the podcast. It gets them to their work, or it gets them through harder things than work.
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors.
It is 2140. You are trapped in an underground bunker, built a century ago to protect mankind from the pandemic on the surface. Now ruled by tyrants and their robot army. You are an outcast, an orphan, a scavenger, blind, afraid, and alone. You are Ace, a survivor, and you will try to escape this place known as Subterra. Subscribe to Subterra at iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you download podcasts.
Let's get back into it.
Talk about exclusive. I have a piece of the fucking poker table, man.
Oh, from the, what was that from? For the vinyl cast? Or did you just take a piece of the felt?
No, you handed it to me.
Okay. Oh, all right.
Yeah, you had made like these little cards or whatever with a piece of the felt on them.
Well, yeah, we gave those cards out with the first initial orders of Vinyl Cast 2, I believe.
Oh, Vinyl Cast 2, gotcha.
So I must have had some extra cards. I was giving them out to anybody who mentioned that they listen to Tom Steve because I had some extra ones.
Well, what's funny is that when you gave it to me, you go, "Don't tell anybody about this because this hasn't come out yet." But here, this is the thing. And so I was like, "Woohoo!"
It must have been that we hadn't started shipping the vinyl cast out then. Yeah, that must have been why I mentioned don't say anything about this because I wanted it to be a surprise.
Oh, and it was. And also, you gave me what I think it's get 'em. It's I'm collected and checked out.
What's it say?
It says I'm clocked in and I'm checked out or something like that. I love it. Yeah. It's fantastic. Anyway, Red Bank is across the bay or whatever from Manhattan, right?
Yes.
So, again, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but I've heard many stories from people close to New York City on 9/11, and I've even heard Brian tell a few stories about that day.
Mm-hmm.
Every time that I have somebody on who was anywhere near there that day, I ask them to tell me what they can remember about that day.
Sure.
Lodondo had an amazing story about that day. I don't know if he shared it with you, but it's fucking fantastic in the saddest, most horrific way. But
okay.
Can you tell me about your experience that day?
Okay, it is going to be very, very underwhelming. Not fantastic, not riveting, but I remember my wife had gone to school. She was a school teacher, and I was...
And she works in New Jersey, not in New York, right?
Right. She had gone to her work, and I didn't have to go to the stash till open till 11 because it was a Tuesday. So I don't have to get up until about 10 o'clock, 10:15. I can even stretch it. That's how... Yeah, it's not that far a ride from where I live to the stash. But I get a call that wakes me up, and it's Sunday Jeff. And he goes, you got the TV on? And I'm like, what? And he goes, you got the TV on? The World Trade Center has just been hit. And so, him telling me this, it's not like I just woken up. So I'm like, it's not really registering with me. And he goes, I got to go. And he just hangs up. He was at work. He was where he was working. So I go to turn the TV on, and the TV doesn't work. It's just snow. So I'm like, I can't get the TV to work. And what and I assumed that all the TV stations were out. I don't know why. I assumed maybe there was some sort of antenna or something on the World Trade Center. I didn't know why the TV was out, but I could not get the TV to turn on, so I put the radio on. So all I had was audio telling me what was going on. I had the visuals in my head because I'm like, what? So I was creating in my head what was going on because I only had the radio to tell me. And what had happened with the TV was that the cable wire had just fallen out the back of the TV. It really would have worked the whole time, but I didn't realize that the cable wire had fallen out. I didn't realize it until later on that night that all I had to do was plug the cable wire back in. So I had to sit there and listen to the radio, and then I went down to the end of my street, and I could see the smoke in the sky, and a whole bunch of other people were also at the bulkhead where we lived, where we could see across the river, we could see the smoke and everything. So a lot of people were just stunned silence in town just looking. So then I drove back home, or I walked back home, and I went over to my mother-in-law's house because my daughter was going to preschool that day. And I wanted to tell her, I don't think you should go to preschool today. I imagine that maybe we should just stay home. For whatever reason, I was just like, don't know what the next shoe is going to be. 2 planes have just hit a major building. I don't know what other shoe what's the next shoe that's going to drop. So I went over there, and which was only, again, like we only lived 2 seconds from each other. So I went over there, and she had the TV on. That's where I got the first visuals of everything going on. And we kept my daughter home, and then my wife came home because I think they had to let school. I don't know if they let him out early. I can't remember. Pretty insignificant anyway. And we just watched news coverage of it. Really, I mean, that was really all I could do. You just sat in stunned shock of what you were seeing and hearing on TV. But I really don't have any other story besides that, though. You just kind of went into a state of shock and just consumed the news for the next months and months and months. But I really don't have a personal story to tell about it. I didn't know anybody who worked in New York. I didn't know anybody at that point that I could say, like, I'm worried about a specific person. So it was more just like complete and utter dumbfoundedness of what was going on, but kind of was just that for a month. There was really no personal story for me.
Well, that makes sense. I get different stories from different people. And as it turns out, you do know somebody who was down there that day, who was working downtown, and that's Chris Lodondo. But, I have to imagine that seeing it from, the end of your street or whatever, I can't even imagine what that must have been like to see in person. That really must have been a lot different than me watching it on TV here in Texas.
Right. Well, I mean, it's definitely, it's crazy when you could see it happening down the end of your street.
Well, thank you for that. There seems to be some uncertainty in the last couple of episodes of Tell 'em Steve Dave about whether or not the Secret Stash will reopen after this pandemic is over. Can you tell me any more about that?
Well, updates. I mean, with the quarantine lengthened, I really don't have any updates of. I mean, I'm sure I'm sure we will reopen when the quarantine is lifted, because I mean we're going to we have a store. There's rent to pay. There's product. It's not just going to be like, oh, it just got shuttered and it never reopened again. But as far as the long-term health, I mean that remains to be seen. No one knows what the world is going to be like when it goes, quote unquote, back to normal, or at least reopens, for business again. Will people have disposable income for comics and the stuff that is sold at the stash? No one really knows, but I mean, we definitely will reopen and see what happens, going forward. But that's really the only answer we got. But it definitely will reopen now.
Well, that is a great answer. My son, who is 28, he was heartbroken when I told him that the stash might not reopen, because showing up to the Secret Stash is on his bucket list.
Oh.
So he's super hoping.
Oh, good. Yeah, I think that was recorded where, like, emotionally, the uncertainties of everything going on, your mind races a million miles a second, and you think worst case scenarios. At least, I'm prone to that. So I probably was in a headspace that wasn't great And not that I'm in a great one now because of this, because it's still going on. But I imagine, though, that reopening is definitely going to happen. It just remains to be seen, what business will be like after that, though. I think along with a whole bunch of other businesses, when they reopen, what's going to be the customer rate going to be at that point? How many customers are going to be able to come back? How many customers are going to have money to spend on comics and this other stuff that we sell? A lot of unknowns.
That makes sense. You don't have to say specifics, but has there been a conversation between you and the big man about that particular event?
Well, I think that's what I just mentioned, I think, is exactly, the conversation we had,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I hate to say this, let's imagine a world where the stash doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
What are you going to do? What's your new career going to be?
It's hard to imagine at my age that I'll have a quote-unquote career. I probably will have a job more than a career, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. What do I have to offer at this point in my life, career-wise?
Would you turn into a con whore like Ming?
No. You got to be. Not that I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean I'm not built. I'm not built to fly. I'm not built to travel like that. And he is the perfect con guest. He enjoys it. He is willing to go to wherever that is willing to invite him. That takes a lot of energy that I don't have. He still has that energy. I don't. I never had that kind of energy, especially the travel part of it. That does not appeal to me. I just see myself getting like maybe a stocking job somewhere. I don't know. I really don't know. But I mean, that to me seems like I'm qualified to do it. That's at this point in my life. I'm not going back to school, I don't think.
Well, I think you're selling yourself short. You ran a business. That takes a lot of skill, whether you admit it or not. And that's cool if you don't want to admit it. But that does take a skill.
It does, but I think it also takes a very limited knowledge of the inventory, comic books. I don't think I could have done that job if it was another inventory, like if it was another type of product. I think just being so versed on comic books was a huge advantage. I didn't need to crunch books or to bone up on any knowledge on the upcoming product. I already knew it already. I already was in that world. So that was a huge advantage of being able to run that store, though. I don't know if I have that knowledge on any other aspect of anything else on the planet, though.
Well, hopefully we'll never find out.
Yeah, hopefully. Yes. Hopefully.
I hope you run the stash until you retire.
Yeah, I mean, God, it's got to be getting close to retirement for me, I hope. That's what I'm always like, well, how much longer can I retire to? And it's still quite a ways away.
What are you eating during this pandemic? I mean, you can't go to the grocery store and you only eat a couple of things.
Yeah, the grocery store is open.
What?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of businesses that are still open. Tons of stuff that's still open. It's just non-essential shit like comic book stores that aren't open and hobby stores. Like there's a lot of things that are closed, a ton of shit that's closed, but there's just as much open. And, I go to the grocery store, because I've been looking for stuff for my mom and my mother-in-law, the stuff that they need. So I'm constantly stopping into other stores looking for the necessities that they're running low on. But as far as what I'm eating, it's just what I've been eating before.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah, the other day, everybody in the house was like, they were so tired of the home-cooked meal. So they were like, can't we just go through a drive-thru somewhere? And I was like, yeah, let's get Chick-fil-A. And the Chick-fil-A, the nearest Chick-fil-A to a drive-thru to us is like a 40-minute drive. I was like, well, we got nothing else to do. We might as well take the 40-minute drive.
Yeah, we can get out of the house for a while.
Yeah, never thinking, though, that, hell, a lot of other people are in the same dilemma. And so when we got there, it was an hour-long wait.
Are you kidding?
In the drive-thru. No, it was wrapped around the block.
Oh, my gosh.
Everybody was like, we're not going to wait in that line, right? And I was like, well, what else we got to get home to?
Yeah, and we already drove 40 minutes here.
Yeah, it's another 40 minutes back. I go, what difference does it make if we stay and just wait in the line? So we wound up waiting in line for the Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, by the time we get home, we're going to be next in line.
Right. And that killed like 2.5 hours of the day.
Wow, that's crazy.
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors.
Hey guys, if you're like me, quarantine or not, you and your family are looking for new things to do together that don't involve staring at a screen. I have the perfect solution. It's a new trivia game called You Know It, and it's a blast and you can try it for free. You Know It was created by John Sylvain, one of the hosts of the Nooner podcast on Kevin Smith's Smodcast Podcast Network. And since I'm a fan of that podcast, I signed up for an early copy when John launched his Kickstarter campaign. Really, I just wanted to be supportive, but my family and I played the game and we loved it. Days later, everybody kept saying how fun it was. It's a very simple game. The rules are even simpler than Trivial Pursuit, but there's a lot of strategy to it as well, and the questions are fun and interesting and sometimes hilarious. And all of the questions have two parts, so maybe you don't know the first part, but maybe you know the second part, or vice versa, like this one. What name is shared by a California NBA team and a California NHL team? The Kings. They're not all easy like that, but some of them are. There's wild cards and strategy and stealing and even consequences for getting an answer wrong. One of my favorite parts about this game is that there's 3 questions on each card, 3 rounds plus maybe a tiebreaker for each game. Like when me and my family played, there was 4 of us, and it took 45 minutes to an hour, and we only used 6 cards, and there's so many cards. We could play this game forever. Now, I'm not suggesting that you have to be drinking to play this game, but me and my family were, and I tell you what, it raises the fun level to 11. I highly recommend you try it, and you can do that for free by going to youknowitthegame.com, all one word, no spaces, and you can download and print a starter pack for free. There's also more cards available for science and sports, and even a special Generation Z pack. And if free isn't cheap enough for you, Streetwalkers can get 30% off on all other downloadable packs by using the discount code FSTREET at checkout. Once again, that's youknowitthegame.com, all one word, no spaces, and use the discount code FSTREET at checkout for 30% off all other downloadable packs. And if I'm being honest, Streetwalkers, I'm a little upset that I only got 1 copy of this game. My kids are adults, and they deserve a copy of this game so they can play with their friends too. Remember, the game is called You Know It, and it's a blast.
Let's get back into it.
Do you really think you already had COVID-19 and got over it?
Yeah, I do. I mean, there's some things that make me believe I did. There's a few things that make me question if I did. But if I had to lay big bucks, I would go all in. And I'm not a bettor. I am not a gambler. I would go all in on that I had it. I look back in that moment when I had it, when I was sick, and never once thinking that it was anything other than just a weird illness. And nothing that also made me feel like I was anywhere near death's door. Absolutely the opposite. I just felt like out of it, but not bad. Like on a scale of 1 to 10, I would have said I was a 3 on how sick I was. And, you know, and I've been 10. I've been 10 where I was so sick I couldn't even move. And it was nothing like that for me personally. I know it's a lot different for other people, but nothing that would have given me any alarm other than the cough. Could not shake the cough. And at times towards the end before it went away, I was like, I maybe have to go see a doctor. And I haven't seen a doctor in years, you know, and I was like, I may have to see a doctor. I don't know why I can't get rid of this cough, making me think that maybe it was more to what I had because I could not get rid of a cough, you know, and I'd never had a dry cough in my life. And it was the weirdest thing. I would just have coughing fits and I'd be out of breath, like going up the stairs. And I would be like, this is not like me. Is there something more wrong with me? Not thinking it was COVID, just thinking that like maybe I have cancer or something because why am I unable to shake this cough? But eventually it just went away though. You know, inevitably it just went away. And it was only months later when COVID exploded on the news and I was seeing and hearing a lot of coverage on it. I was like, damn, man, that sounds a lot like what I had. And I only remember exactly what happened because we were filming a Frank 5 Rewind that night. I got sick and I texted Frank and I was like, do you remember that night we did that? And I was sick And you came back the next week, because after we recorded that Frank 5 Rewind, the Lost in Space episode, he was scheduled to come back and record the Christmas show, our last Christmas show. He agreed to come back the following weekend, and he came back sick, and he was busting my nuts. I was like, you got me sick. And I was like, oh, I felt so bad. I was like, oh, man, I'm so sorry I got you sick, but I'm really happy you were able to at least come down and be a part of the Christmas show. And I texted him months later about that, and just recently, and I was like, do you remember that? And we went over our symptoms together via text, and it was check, 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 check. His wife got it. Check, check. Everything pointed to we had the symptoms of coronavirus. The things that make me think I didn't have it, I was with my mom, in that period when I had that. She never got sick. I was with my mother-in-law, who's in that danger area section of people who, if they get it, would be very bad for them to get it. She's not the healthiest person, and she didn't get sick though, and I was in her presence. So that makes me question, well, if they didn't get sick, maybe I didn't have it then.
Where do you think you would have gotten it from?
Any number of places. I mean, I don't think that there's any chance in hell that the first case is exactly when they say it was in China. Because people would have been getting sick and nobody would have raised an eyebrow. People would have gotten sick because if they had what I had, this would not have raised anybody's eyebrow. There's a lot of people who have COVID who don't go on death's door. They just kind of feel like, oh yeah, I got it, but they're not in any way, shape, or form, you're ready to lay down and die. So I don't think that there's any way that they can pinpoint exactly when that first case was. So they may have been around a lot longer than people realize. Where I think they got, my wife was sick, and she never gets sick. She was sick before me. With all the hours of being quarantined, we went over everything, over the past couple of months of who was sick and who wasn't. And she had it before me, and she couldn't shake it, and she never gets sick. So I theorized that maybe she had it and gave it to me, or it could have been somebody coming into the store, or any number of places where I was exposed to. Anybody could be exposed to it. But I just love that, there's these many cases in the world and in America, and everybody I tell is like, you didn't fucking have it. I was like, why not? Why not? Why couldn't I have had it, though?
Yeah, why not? There's
it's
no
not like
reason.
A lottery ticket. It's not like I wanted to have it, but I got it.
Right.
It's not like I'm the lucky guy that got it, but there's a lot of scoffing when I mentioned that I think I had it.
Well, it can't be all that easy to pinpoint, like you said. It could have been here forever. Not forever, but it could have been here months before we thought it was here, like you're saying. And since, New York is basically the hardest hit area right now, who's to say it wasn't there, way earlier? Like, you could have gotten it, and then by the time you're getting over it, now people are starting to get sick or whatever. So why not?
Yeah. Like I said, there's other things that make me wonder why I didn't get the elders of our family sick. Well, I'm glad they didn't, but I'm like, well, maybe I didn't have it then. But maybe they just got lucky and I just wasn't directly in front of them, or just by pure luck that I didn't spread it to them.
Maybe you washed your hands and didn't cough on the people you love.
Right. Hopefully, they never get it, but that's the only thing that makes me question, maybe I didn't have it. But boy, everything points to that. Like, I could check all the boxes though. I had the tightness of breath too. Tightness in the chest, yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're feeling better, and I'm glad that
that was
you're
a month
over.
ago.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're over whatever it was, and hopefully that was it, and you won't get it, so they say, after that.
Yeah, hopefully that's the case, yeah.
All right, a couple more questions before I let you go.
Okay, all right.
This is a hot seat question. I know you love these.
Okay, hot button?
Yeah, that. Who is the one person you would call to help you dispose of a dead body? It could be anybody.
Oh, boy, let me think about that one. I'm going to say Brian Johnson.
Because he'd be really good at it?
Because Brian Johnson, not only would he be good at it, but I think he would be pretty damn good at keeping the secret, too. I think he is one of those guys. I don't know if a lot of people have guys like that in their lives, but if I had a major emergency, let's say it's something other than even murder or like a dead body, but like anything like that, I hope that everybody has a Brian Johnson that they can count on when the chips are down like that. I'm lucky enough to have a close friend like that. So I don't always like to bring his name up when I'm about the disposal of the dead body. I mean, he's also useful and helpful in far more happier things than dismembering and disposing of him. Why did I say dismembering?
Yeah, I know. What's going on?
That was weird. that was strange. But yeah, no, he would be the guy because I feel like he could handle it. He could handle that level of trauma, revealing that kind of secret too. And there's not many people that could handle that level. The trauma, like revealing that kind of huge secret, and he's one that can. And you also, you got to factor in there, like there's friends I have that I wouldn't want to tell them something like that, because that would be a devastating burden for them to have to carry if I told them something like that. And I have people that I would never tell that to, but then I have Brian Johnson that I know there's not much that could devastate him in terms of revealing a horrible secret like that you'd call upon someone like that. But yeah, definitely Brian Johnson.
Nice. I'm glad you have that person.
Yeah, but the caveat is, like, it's not just dirty deeds. He can handle other things too.
Well, the person that you would trust with those deeds is also the person that you could trust with a whole lot easier shit.
Exactly.
All right, last question.
Yes.
You don't do podcasts and you don't do interviews.
No, I don't.
Why'd you say yes to me?
Ooh, the truth?
Yeah, the truth.
You sent me an email, and at the end of it, you used a certain phrase that I noticed and that made me stop on the sentence and gave me pause. And I was just like, I don't want to use it. I guess it kind of touched me. So I was just like, oh, okay, well, how can I say no then? And the reason I don't do them is for no other reason. Is just like, I don't know. I just don't like to talk constantly about myself, though. I find it distasteful at times.
Sure, that makes sense. Not a lot of people like to talk about themselves, particularly people who shy away from microphones and cameras don't. So that makes sense. Walt Flanagan, can you tell everybody where they can find you on social media, if that's even possible? Not the secret ones, but the ones you want people to know about?
No. Yeah, I am not really interested in a lot of social media.
Cool.
I find it to be distracting for me personally, so I try not to. And lately, I haven't been, especially with what's going on. I mean, I feel like just not the right time to be dopey on social media, so I've just kind of stayed away from it. And it's just so much weightier things going on than cracking wise, which I know that people need a distraction, and I know that's a way for people to kill time. I'm not saying in a bad way, but for me personally, I just don't find much in social media right now.
Well, that is understandable. Everybody listening, check out Tell 'em Steve Dave. If you're not already a listener, You're a fucking idiot, because this shit is gold. It's almost 450 episodes in. It comes out weekly. You will love it. Go back and catch all of it. Well, hopefully. So, for the most part, it's weekly. Also, if you haven't already, subscribe to the Tell 'em Steve Dave Patreon account. There's all kinds of crazy cool stuff that comes on there. We talked about the Sunday Jeff show. That's on there. Tidbits, Frank 5, Rewind, all kinds of stuff. Really check that stuff out. It's awesome. And if you happen to be anywhere near a comic book store and or a real bookstore, a regular bookstore, I should say, if you happen to see the words Walt Flanagan, illustrator, on any book, grab it, because you will enjoy yourself, I promise. Walt Flanagan, I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day and your pandemic-filled life to hang out and let us get to know you a little bit better on Fascination Street, man. I really appreciate it.
Oh, awesome. I appreciate you asking me, and it was painless, which is good.
Well, that is good.
And I thank you for having me on.
Well, it was my pleasure, and never in my wildest dreams did I think that I would get you on my show. You are literally an ungettable guest. I even told my wife that I was so excited because of the Tell 'em Steve Dave people, you're the most ungettable one, because you don't do this.
No, I don't.
It was so awesome. She said, well, don't count your chickens because he might not do it.
No, if I say something, if I say I'm going to do it, 9.9 times out of 10, I'll do it. That's why I always am honest. And if I'm like, I'm not going to do something, I tell people lay it right out there. I'm not going to do that because I don't like to disappoint or to lead people on or to give anybody any kind of indication that might not be accurate.
Well, in your email, you put some numbers in there that made me think you would. And those numbers were a phone number. So I felt pretty confident you were going to do it.
But I didn't have to pick up.
Oh, well, that's true. That's true. All right. Well, you have a great rest of your night. And thank you again so much, man. Stay safe out there.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Bye, man.
Bye.
As always, thanks for listening, Streetwalkers. And don't forget, follow the show on Twitter at FascinationSTPD, on Instagram at Fascination Street Pod. Follow the podcast page on Facebook at Fascination Street Podcast. And of course, you can always email me at fascinationstreetpod@gmail.com. And if you haven't already, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button and rate us on iTunes. Opening music is the song Magnolia from the 2014 album Intransigence, used with permission from Douglas Miles Clark. Closing music is Apollo from the 2001 album Into the Known by the band Sapphire. Thanks for hanging out with us and getting to know a little bit about our guest. We'll see you next time on Fascination Street.